back to the Remembering Me podcast. It's your compatriot Val. We are in this caregiving journey together, and what I will say is we've started out, our preliminary topic was the top 5 reasons why you should not be a caregiver. If you have not heard that episode, please go back and listen to it. It's not saying you shouldn't be a caregiver, but certainly looking at some of the common reasons that people become a caregiver and saying you need to reevaluate your purpose. I've encouraged you to listen to this episode, which is the top 5 reasons why you should become a caregiver. So this is not, again, not saying, hey, you should be a caregiver, as much as it's saying, if you are deciding whether or not to embark upon the caregiver journey, these are the reasons upon which you should do it. Okay? So we're just going to dive in. This podcast is about remembering you, remembering me, making sure that you don't get lost in your caregiving journey, whatever that relationship is, right? Parent-child, spouse, significant other, sibling, foster parent, whatever that is, right? You don't take that relationship and focus so much on their needs, that loved one's needs, that you end up on the wayside. So we're going to dive in. The number one reason why you should become a caregiver is because you want to. Now, that doesn't that seem self-explanatory? You want to. But let me give you a bit more background on that. So it's not just that we talked in the first session about not doing it because of guilt and obligation and have to, right? A want to. It's something you desire to do. I want to give you a bit more context on that. And so because we end up in a situation where we might have good intentions, like we want to because it's a good idea, I'm saying you want to because you really want this. You want to be the one providing care for your loved one. You don't want anyone else necessarily, right? You don't want them outside the home. You want them close to you. You want to. That is critical because when you end up in a place where it can be difficult, not because it's difficult, right? Some people, the caregiving is more involved. It really is it's a chore, it's a lot to undertake. And then some, it can be lightweight. What makes it difficult is the fact that it needs to be done every single day. That was the part, I think, for me that it wasn't any of the tasks themselves individually. It was the every single day aspect of it. It was the fact that the only way to get a vacation from it was to literally take a vacation, right? And you don't do those every week and every month and right? You plan your vacation but you have, even taking a vacation requires preparation. It was the fact that at the end of the night when I was tired, like really tired, I couldn't just go to bed, right? I had a task that needed to be done. It was on those mornings where I wanted to sleep in, right? I couldn't just sleep in and veg out, right? I was the primary caregiver. And so what I found was when I got to that difficult place and I realized that I was losing me, that I had put my friendships, my relationships, my goals, everything that I was working on kind of to the wayside. And I could feel myself getting further and further away from those things. And it wasn't intentional. And I never felt so far away that I couldn't get back to it, but it was like drifting, right? If you've ever been in the ocean or a lake and let the waves kind of carry you, you didn't swim out into the deep, but if you don't pay attention, you realize you're out further than you expected, and it's hard to get back, hard to impossible to get back. So when I reached that point and I had to kind of reevaluate, assess my want to, I had to assess this relationship and what I was doing, I realized this is something I desire to do. So what you'll find as you listen to these episodes and the podcast is that I will encourage you to assess your caregiver relationship, assess whether or not it's working for you, and not assess it in the sense that you're ready to check out and goodbye, I'm done with this, but assess it so you can make adjustments, right? If you're in a marriage and you start off and you start to veer apart, whatever it is, you got to assess so you can get back and continue that path forward. Caregiving is such that you want to assess. You don't want to end up in a place, and we'll talk to the second reason why you should do this is because you want a closer relationship with your loved one. And when you're caregiving, it's not the same relationship. Dave Ramsey used to talk about when you borrow money from a friend or from a loved one, that it's no longer whatever that relationship was. It becomes lender and borrower. And now when you're sitting at that dinner table and you're talking about that vacation and you still owe them money, you feel like a borrower, and they're your creditor, they're your lender. When you're in a caregiver relationship, it can be so easy to get into the day-to-day, what they need, what they want, what they have to have, planning, all the things, that you lose just that basic banter you used to have, right? The jokes they used to tell, the current events you used to talk about, the fact that they were your confidant, right? You could share your concerns, your hopes, your dreams. It's easy to lose that relationship because you're now a caregiver. And so if you desire to become closer to them, maybe you were close already, maybe you were close already, or maybe you were not as close as you want it to be, and you see this as an opportunity to kind of make up for lost time. If that relationship with your loved one is one of the reasons, that's a great reason to do it. Now, you have to safeguard that relationship. Like I said, it's easy to get caught up in the caregiving. And it's easy for your loved one to get so used to you being the caregiver that they speak to you like you're their aide. I need, I want, get me, that's not enough, do this, right? And all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? What? And so you have to be able to set boundaries, right? Because I'm not in this caregiver because I just needed a task to do, right? And if it starts to become a task to do and I don't have a relationship with you, I'm fine saying this is not a task that I need in my life, right? That's hard. That's why I said we have to assess, because you need to be honest with your loved one. Because if you're in this because of guilt, we talked about in the last session, if you're in this because you feel like you have to, if you're in this and you don't have a relationship and you're just doing the task, it can create bitterness. It can create discontent. And we want to make sure that we have a healthy, productive relationship, even as a caregiver. So if you want to, because you want to improve that relationship, there's some steps that you can take, and that's one of the things we'll talk about in a future podcast. But there's some steps you can take to safeguard that relationship. Now, the third reason why you should become a caregiver is if you have a strong support network. Now, not that you think all these people are going to do the things, right? You are the caregiver. You will be the caregiver. But a strong support network means you have people in your life that care about you. And care about you to the point that they call you, they check on you, they spend time with you, they can share resources, you have a network. One of the most difficult things for people to do is I've seen people move to where their loved one is, and they're going to live in their loved one's house, they're going to provide all the caregiving services, and they are not from that area, or they haven't been there in a long time, they don't have the connections, and they end up being isolated. The worst place for you as a caregiver is being isolated. You have to have a support network. Hopefully this podcast can be that. One of the things I invited you to do was to submit questions. If you need to bounce ideas off and hear input, you can direct message me. We'll look at your questions. We'll get you answers on some of these podcasts. And the answers are going to be our feedback, our recommendations, suggestions, right? It's not advice. It's not counsel, but certainly it's things that you can consider. You need a network. You need someone that you can talk to when you're frustrated. And let me tell you, I have no problem saying, how's your loved one? That's what my friends and sorority sisters and others ask. How is your loved one? And one of the things I'll say, worrisome as ever, because I've shared with them some of my challenges, but they know I love my loved one, right? That's never not a fact. But I can be honest with them, and it helps to be able to have that sounding board. It helps for them to say, did you know about? I have a friend, and they have a close friend that's a social worker. They gave me a resource that was so valuable. People give you things, you're like, oh, yeah, thanks, right? Like when you're dealing with certain situations, sometimes people offer you feedback and things that you didn't ask for, you don't want. This resource was so helpful, and I'm going to show it to you. We're going to go over this. I'm going to have this social worker come in, not so much to tell you all of the services that are available in your area, but how do you find services? What types of services can be available? Because I was like jaw dropped, like, oh my gosh, I need this. Like, began to go through those resources, but you don't get that if you don't have a network. You need a strong support network. This is not the time to be altruistic. It's not the time for you to, be a lone ranger and try to do everything on your own, and I've got this, I'll figure it out, YouTube. This podcast is a resource, but you need a network. You need other people and that can speak to you, encourage you, all the things. So if you don't have that, you need to evaluate being a caregiver, and maybe you're still a caregiver, but maybe your loved one comes where you are, as opposed to you going where they are. Whatever it is, right, you need to work those out, but make sure you have that strong support network. All right. The fourth reason that you should become a caregiver is because you have the flexibility to do so and you have the facilities. What do I mean? So if you have a job that requires you to be there all day, every day, right, you have to go in person, it's demanding, it's stressful, and all the things, and you have to have this job for your day-to-day life, right? It's not an optional job and you can walk away from. You might not have the flexibility. If you have a family with a lot of needs and you are, a single parent, or you're the individual that's providing the majority of the care, and you may not have the flexibility. So if you have the flexibility, and if you do, right? And flexibility can mean that you let go of some things that are not important. A lot of our lives are filled up with things that are really not important. They're time wasters. They take up a lot of energy. When you get rid of those things, you can find that you have some flexibility, but you'll know whether or not you do or not. So assess that. And if you do, you should, right? The other thing is if you have the facilities. So if you're in a one-bedroom apartment and you don't have, you should not, right? You need to evaluate. I don't have the facilities to be able to tend to. And it might be that you change locations. It might be that you make arrangements, right? And you might not have the facilities today, but you can get those, and this is what we're going to do. But make sure you do that assessment, because when you say yes, it has an impact on everything around you. So make sure you're equipped to be able to say yes. You just have the basic needs, basic necessities to meet the needs of your loved one. All right. The fifth reason why you should become a caregiver, this is probably going to surprise you, is that you have a commitment to your own well-being. All right, so what do I mean by that? I mean, you are willing to say that I am going to do this because it's something I want to do, it's something I'm equipped to do, it's something I have the network around me to be able to flourish in, but I also have a commitment to my own well-being. This is the quintessential airplane example. Oxygen mask drops down, you put it over your face first. If you're not healthy, if you're not well, you will find that you cannot be an effective caregiver. I had a close family member reach out to me, and we were talking, and they said, well, you know what typically happens with caregivers, right? And I thought they were going to say this really positive, inspirational comment. I was like, what? Because this is the type of person they are. Well, caregivers usually go first. What? Just what? Basically, and this person was giving me good advice because they care about me, part of that support network. Oh my gosh. Basically saying that caregivers are so busy giving care, they're not making their own doctor's appointment. They're not taking care of their own mental health. They're not exercising. They're not doing the things that are necessary for them to thrive. If you cannot make a commitment to your own personal care and well-being, you should not be a caregiver. But if you can prioritize you, because a happy you, a healthy you, a fully functional, capable you is going to be an amazing caretaker. Now, if you're listening to all the things and you're like, oh yeah, I've got the network, oh yeah, I've got the facilities, oh yeah, but then you get to this last one and you realize that no, I'm not taking care of me, right? Let me give you an example. I was taking my loved one's blood pressure, like kind of regularly, monitoring their blood pressure. But guess whose blood pressure I wasn't checking? Guess whose blood pressure was higher than it had ever been in my life? Because not only was caregiving challenging for different reasons, but work was stressful. Everything in life became harder to do. Just going to the grocery store, it took energy, right? I had to take a deep breath and like everything felt like it had been multiplied in the weight. You have to have a commitment to well-being. And if you're on this journey and you have not made that commitment to yourself, then it's time to assess, right? We're going to do that assessment. But let's decide that from today forward, we have a commitment to our own personal well-being. That's the whole Remembering Me podcast. Your dreams, your desires, your goals, that business, that book, that idea, that song, right? All the things, whatever it is, the things that give you joy, that make you light, that make you smile and bring contentment to you. We have to keep doing those things. We owe it to our loved one. And you know what? Some of us have laid our lives on the altar, and that's not what our loved one wants for us. It isn't. And what happens is you may be doing that willingly, but you laid yourself on the altar and then you realize your loved one now feels like a burden because they realize that you've given up all the things, right? We need to make sure that we continue to move forward. We continue to progress in our own lives so we can progress and care for our loved ones in the best way possible. The best you is the best caregiver for them. So that's our top 5 reasons. I hope that you found within those that you've made the decision to become a caregiver for those reasons. If you have not, just assess. What adjustments can I make to make sure that I fall in these categories? I will tell you now that we're going to continue on a lot of really good topics. We're going to talk to you as a caregiver. You're going to give us your concerns, your questions, your thoughts. We're going to take this journey. You are going to accomplish those dreams. You are amazing. You are not giving up. Please don't give up relationships that are healthy and whole, happy and whole, right? That significant other that you are madly in love with, that you feel like, you know what, I just need to take some time away from this relationship to care for. Oh my gosh. You're happy, you're fulfilled, all the things. Like it's not like this terrible, awful situation you're trying to escape from. Keep that relationship alive. If they care for you, they'll stay around, right? Keep that alive while you care for this loved one.